Hey guys, welcome back to the Okie Farmhouse. On today's episode, I'm going to show you how to build these raised garden planters. Let's get into it.
This first step is optional. I just like to plane one side of the pickets just to give them a nicer finish on the planters. But you don't have to do this. I don't take off very much, just enough to smooth it out so it's not as rough.
Here we're taking our pressure treated pine 2x4s. We're going to cut the supports for the planter boxes. We're going to measure out 6 of them at 33 inches. These will be your main supports for each of the corners and for the middle section of the box. And then we'll also have another 4 that will cut at 32 that connect the sides and provide some additional rigidity to the boxes. You can also cut another support at 32 inches to use in the middle section that just keep the bottom of the planter from bowing out once you put soil in. But it is optional because you could stake the bottom of it and attach that um, to the box itself and drive those into the ground when you place them where you need them. All right, now that we have our structural supports cut, we're going to move on to cutting the pickets for the side panels. We're going to need to cut 12 of these at approximately 70 inches to make the planter. So our next set of cuts are going to be for our end pieces. We're going to cut the cedar pickets here at about 35 to 36 inches, depending on how wide you want your planter boxes to be. They don't have to be exact because we will cover them up with a trim piece, but you're going to need to cut 12 of these end pieces as well. All right, now that we've got all of our pieces cut, we're going to start with assembling the side panels. One of the things that I like to do is to set this up on my assembly table. I will lay out 2 2x6s in between the 2x4 supports, and then I'll start with the bottom picket and get it lined up and in place. And this helps just kind of make sure that everything lines up as we go towards the top and keeps everything even. Another helpful tip here is to mark center on your picket. I'll do this both on the top and bottom pickets. This helps when aligning that center support to make sure it's directly in the middle. This will also help you when you go to add the trim pieces in the end to align that center board with the center of the box itself. All right, now that that first picket is secured in place, I'm going to go ahead and lay out the rest of the side panel with the rest of the pickets. We're going to make sure we get all the ends even. Once I get all that kind of lined up roughly, another trick here is I'm going to take some clamps and kind of squeeze the side panel together. As you know, cedar pickets are not always uniform, and so it can leave some pretty big gaps in the side panel. And if you're not going to use a liner, that leaves a lot of room for soil and water to leak out and can stay in the side and help, increase the chances of rot over time. And so I like to squeeze the pickets together before I screw them down just to get all my gaps as tight as I can. And then once everything is secured, I can remove those clamps. All right, and our next step, now that our side panels have been assembled, is we need to get them connected using our cross supports that we cut earlier. We're going to attach these with exterior screws and keep them in alignment with the other screws that we use to attach the panels to the supports so that in the end we can cover them with our trim pieces. All right, now that all our supports are in place, we can begin adding the pickets to the end of the planter box. And this will kind of finish up um, the main portion of the box itself. At this point, if you so chose to, you could choose not to do the trim and leave it with just the butt joints exposed. But I like the finished look of adding the additional trim pieces. It's up to you whether you would add a cap as well to the top. But this is kind of the final step for the basic planter box itself. So one other tip here, you'll notice here at the end as I'm trying to finish up this box, um, the picket itself, they're not uniform, and so to make sure that my last picket ends up flush with the top of the planer box, before I attach it, I'm going to kind of mark it and then take it over to my table saw and cut it so that it ends up level with the top edge of the box. Sometimes this happens, not always, but it just really depends on the pickets that you use. The next step here is we're going to attach the cap to the planer boxes. I do like to use glue here. Cedar pickets just have a tendency in the weather to cup or bow over time, and the glue just kind of helps to keep that a little bit more solid and reduce the risk of that happening. Also, as you're moving these around, it's just an additional bit of strength to keep you from ripping the cap off as you lift it or move it around to get it where you need it to be. You can see I marked here where my end piece needed to be ahead of time. Also, we'll measure just to get the exact overhang that I wanted for this end piece. And once this one is set, I'll use 1¼ screws to attach it and then kind of make my way around the planer, doing each piece as I go. The final step here is we're going to now go around and add the additional trim pieces. These help to cover up the screws that we use to attach all the pickets to the supports and to build the planer. It just gives it a nicer finish. As far as the trim pieces go, these side pieces were cut at 33-inch height, just like the supports were. And then once I get the 3 side pieces in place and brad nailed to the box, I'll usually then measure the other pieces that I had put on to build kind of the box style trim that goes around the outside of the planer. It's better to kind of measure these after the fact, because if you don't get just right with your middle support, it can differ side to side as far as the length of that piece. And if you want a tight fit, I choose to kind of always do that as I go, cutting each piece to length. Also, if the box is moved from square a little bit or is not quite square, there can be a change in that measurement from a 1/16 to an 1/8 to 1/4 of an inch sometimes. Here you'll notice I'm marking the trim piece. This is just so that I make sure I get my measurement correct to overlap the corner trim piece to give it a nice finished corner. I don't miter these. I don't think there's any need to. You could run it through the table saw and miter the corners, but I just do a lap joint on these, and it gives the side a nice finish. I usually cover the side over the end, just because typically the view of these is from the side and not from the end. It just gives it a nicer look.
Hey guys, if you like this video, please give me a like or a comment. And if you don't like it, give me a thumbs down. Any little bit helps to know what I need to improve. And if you'd like to see more videos like this, you can always hit that little red button and subscribe. Ring that bell so you see when new videos are released. Thank you guys.